What would you do if you discovered your billionaire husband was living a double life? Rebecca Matthews thought she had it all: a Beverly Hills mansion, a tech mogul husband worth over $2 billion, and a baby on the way. But when she found mysterious hotel charges on their credit card statement, her perfect world began to crumble. The pregnancy test wasn't the only thing with two lines on it that morning. Those credit card charges led to a shocking discovery that would tear apart not just her marriage, but her entire family. Because the woman her husband was buying jewelry for, the woman he was meeting at five-star hotels while Rebecca planned their baby's nursery, it was her own cousin. But that affair was just the tip of the iceberg. What Rebecca uncovered next involved federal crimes, money laundering, a corrupt district attorney, and a web of lies that reached the highest levels of Los Angeles society. When the FBI came knocking, Rebecca faced an impossible choice: protect the father of her unborn child, or expose the truth and watch her entire world collapse. This is the story of a woman who chose justice over loyalty, truth over comfort, and integrity over billions of dollars. Stick around to discover how one pregnant woman brought down a criminal empire and learn that sometimes losing everything is the only way to find yourself. The pregnancy test isn't the only thing with two lines on it, Rebecca whispered, staring at the credit card statement showing charges at the Ritz-Carlton. She was 7 months pregnant, and her billionaire husband Marcus was spending money on hotels when he claimed to be working late. Rebecca Matthews sat heavily in her home office chair, her swollen belly making it difficult to get comfortable. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of their Beverly Hills mansion, but she felt nothing but cold dread spreading through her chest. The credit card statement trembled in her hands as she read the charges again. $300 at the Ritz-Carlton downtown, last Tuesday. The same Tuesday Marcus had texted her about working late on a merger deal. This can't be right, she murmured to herself, reaching for her phone. She scrolled through their text messages from that day. There it was, 6:15 in the evening. Big presentation tomorrow. We'll be home late. Don't wait up. Love you both. He had added a heart emoji and a baby emoji, just like he always did when referring to her and their unborn daughter. But the credit card charge was time-stamped at 7:43 that evening. Room service at the Ritz-Carlton, Rebecca's morning sickness, which had been manageable for weeks, suddenly surged with a vengeance. She rushed to the guest bathroom, barely making it to the toilet before retching violently. Her hands shook as she gripped the cold marble countertop, staring at her reflection in the mirror. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and her usually glossy brown hair hung limp around her shoulders. Pregnancy had taken its toll, but she had been so focused on preparing for their daughter's arrival that she hadn't noticed the distance growing between her and Marcus. Or maybe she hadn't wanted to notice. Back in the office, she spread the credit card statements across her desk. Marcus handled most of their finances through his business accounts, but she managed their personal cards and household expenses. It was her job to organize everything for their accountant, a task that had become increasingly important as Marcus's tech company grew into a billion-dollar enterprise. That's when she saw the second charge that made her blood run cold. Cartier, the same day as the hotel charge. $2,800. Rebecca's engagement ring was from Cartier. She knew their prices. $2,800 was significant jewelry. She looked down at her left hand, where her wedding ring caught the morning light. Marcus hadn't given her anything from Cartier recently. Their 7th wedding anniversary wasn't until next month. She grabbed her laptop and logged into their online banking. Her fingers moved quickly across the keyboard as she searched through months of statements. The pattern was there, hidden among business dinners and legitimate expenses. Hotel charges, restaurant bills for two at places Marcus claimed to be having solo business meetings, jewelry stores, lingerie boutiques. "Oh God," she whispered, pressing her hand to her belly as their daughter kicked. "Oh God, no." Her phone buzzed with a text message. Marcus. "Good morning, beautiful. How are my girls today? Love you." Rebecca stared at the message for a long time before responding. "We're fine. What time will you be home tonight?" "Late again. Sorry, this merger is killing me. Rain check on dinner." She set the phone down without responding and continued scrolling through the credit card charges. The evidence was overwhelming once she knew what to look for. 3 months of deception, 3 months of lies told to her face while she planned their daughter's nursery and worried about being a good mother. The worst part wasn't even the money. Marcus was worth over $2 billion. 20,000 in suspicious charges was nothing to him. The worst part was the timing. The charges started appearing right around the time she had told him she was pregnant, right around the time she had been glowing with happiness, planning their future as a family of three. Rebecca felt another wave of nausea, but this time it had nothing to do with pregnancy hormones. She picked up her phone and dialed the number for the private investigation firm her friend Hannah had recommended during her own messy divorce 2 years ago. She had never imagined she would need it herself. Morrison Investigations, a professional voice answered. Hello, Rebecca said, surprised by how steady her voice sounded. I need to hire someone to investigate my husband. I think he's having an affair. I'm sorry to hear that, ma'am. Can you come in today for a consultation? Rebecca looked at the credit card statements scattered across her desk, evidence of betrayal printed in black and white. Yes, she said. I can be there in an hour. As she gathered the papers and slipped them into a folder, Rebecca felt something she hadn't expected. Beneath the hurt and shock, there was anger. Pure, clean anger that cut through the confusion and fear. She was 7 months pregnant with Marcus's child, planning their future together, trusting him completely, and he was buying jewelry for someone else. Her billionaire husband thought he could lie to her face while she carried his baby. He thought she was too naive, too dependent, too pregnant to notice. He was about to learn how wrong he was. Rebecca grabbed her purse and car keys, moving with more purpose than she had felt in months. She had a private investigator to hire and a marriage to save or destroy. Either way, she was going to learn the truth. Outside, the Los Angeles sun beat down on the perfectly manicured lawn of their estate. Rebecca had fallen in love with this house when Marcus first brought her here 3 years ago. She had imagined their children playing in the garden, family barbecues by the pool, growing old together in the master suite with its view of the city skyline. Now she wondered if she would even be living here by Christmas. As she drove toward downtown, Rebecca's phone buzzed with another text from Marcus. Thinking of you. Can't wait to hold you and baby girl tonight. This time, she didn't respond at all. Sophia always was the pretty one, Rebecca's Aunt Catherine said, not knowing Rebecca was listening outside the kitchen door at the family barbecue. Rebecca froze with her hand on the sliding glass door handle, her heart sinking as she heard her aunt's voice carrying through the screen. The Grant family gathering was in full swing in her Uncle James's backyard, but Rebecca had stepped inside to use the bathroom and escape the suffocating heat. At 7.5 months pregnant, she overheated easily, and the October sun was unusually strong. I'm just saying, Catherine continued, if I were 28 and looked like that, I wouldn't be struggling to make ends meet as an artist. There are other ways to get ahead in this world. What are you implying? That was Rebecca's cousin Sarah, James's eldest daughter. I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts. Look at her today. New designer dress, professional manicure, expensive highlights. Where's a girl like Sophia getting money for that kind of maintenance? Rebecca pressed closer to the door, her pulse quickening. Sophia was her youngest cousin, James's daughter from his second marriage. 28 years old, beautiful in an effortless way that Rebecca had always envied, and struggling to make it as an artist in Los Angeles. She had been acting strange today, checking her phone constantly and disappearing every time Marcus stepped away from the group. Maybe she has a new boyfriend, Sarah suggested. She's been secretive lately. That's what I'm worried about, Catherine said, lowering her voice. A girl like Sophia doesn't suddenly have money unless someone's giving it to her. And given the way she keeps looking at certain people here today, I have my suspicions about who that someone might be. Rebecca's hand instinctively moved to her belly as their daughter kicked hard against her ribs. She felt dizzy, but she couldn't tell if it was the heat, her pregnancy, or the growing certainty that her family was talking about her husband. The kitchen door opened behind her, and she turned to find Sophia herself walking in from the hallway, her phone in her hand and a guilty expression on her face. Oh, Sophia said, stopping short when she saw Rebecca. I didn't know anyone was in here. Just getting some water, Rebecca said quickly, trying to sound normal. It's so hot out there. Sophia was wearing a dress Rebecca didn't recognize, a beautiful coral sundress that looked expensive, paired with delicate gold jewelry that caught the light. Her cousin had always been naturally gorgeous, with thick dark hair and the kind of bone structure that made her photogenic from every angle. But today she looked polished in a way that required serious money. "You look beautiful," Rebecca said, studying Sophia's face. "That's a gorgeous dress." A flush crept up Sophia's neck. "Thank you. It was a gift. From anyone special? Just a friend." Sophia's phone buzzed, and she glanced at it quickly before shoving it into her purse. "How are you feeling? You look tired." Rebecca had been getting that a lot lately. She looked tired. She looked pale. She looked stressed. Meanwhile, Sophia was glowing with the kind of radiance that came from being happy and well cared for. "Pregnancy insomnia," Rebecca said. "Marcus has been working so much lately that I'm practically sleeping alone anyway." Something flickered across Sophia's face too quickly for Rebecca to interpret. "Work has been crazy for him, hasn't it? You would know that just what you've mentioned, family dinners and all that." Sophia's phone buzzed again, and this time she couldn't resist checking it. Her face lit up as she read the message, a small smile playing at her lips. Rebecca felt a chill despite the warm kitchen. "Sophia, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Have you been seeing someone? Someone serious?" The question hung between them like a challenge. Sophia's smile faded, and she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. It was a nervous gesture Rebecca remembered from their childhood, when Sophia would get caught sneaking cookies before dinner. "Why do you ask? You just seem different lately. Happy, like you have a secret." "I guess I do have a secret," Sophia said quietly. She looked down at her phone again, then back at Rebecca. "I'm seeing someone wonderful, but it's complicated." "Complicated how?" Before Sophia could answer, the sliding door opened and Marcus walked in, his face lighting up when he saw them both. "There are my favorite ladies," he said, crossing to Rebecca and kissing her cheek. "I was wondering where you disappeared to." Rebecca watched Sophia's face carefully as Marcus approached. Her cousin's cheeks flushed pink, and she wouldn't meet his eyes directly. When Marcus reached past Sophia to get a bottle of water from the refrigerator, Rebecca saw something that made her stomach drop. Sophia was wearing earrings. Beautiful, delicate gold earrings with small diamonds. Earrings that looked exactly like the ones Rebecca had seen in the Cartier bag hidden in Marcus's closet 3 days ago. The bag she had assumed contained her anniversary gift. "I should get back outside," Sophia said quickly, edging toward the door. "Dad's about to make his speech." She hurried past Marcus, and Rebecca saw him watch her go. Just for a moment, his expression was unguarded, and Rebecca saw something in his eyes that made her blood run cold. It was the way he used to look at her during their first months together. Tender, possessive, hungry. "Everything okay?" Marcus asked, noticing her stare. "Fine," Rebecca said automatically. "Just tired." Outside, they rejoined the family gathering just as Uncle James was calling for everyone's attention. James Grant was an imposing man in his mid-50s, with graying hair and the kind of commanding presence that served him well as district attorney. He had been Rebecca's father figure since her parents died in a car accident when she was 22, and she loved him like a second father. "I want to thank everyone for coming today," James said, his voice carrying across the lawn. "Family is everything. Loyalty is everything. And in my line of work, I see every day what happens when people betray the trust of those who love them most." Rebecca found herself studying the faces around her as James spoke. Marcus stood beside her, his hand on her lower back, but his attention seemed divided. Sophia stood across the circle with her sisters, but her eyes kept drifting to her phone. Catherine watched Sophia with a calculating expression that made Rebecca uncomfortable. "The people who know us best have the power to hurt us most," James continued. "That's why loyalty matters. That's why we protect each other. That's why family comes first. Always." As if choreographed, both Marcus and Sophia checked their phones at the same moment. Rebecca saw Marcus type a quick message, and seconds later, Sophia's face lit up as she read something on her screen. Rebecca felt the world tilt around her. After James's speech, the party continued, but Rebecca felt like she was watching it through glass. She made small talk with her relatives, accepted compliments on her pregnancy glow, and pretended everything was normal. But she was cataloging every interaction between Marcus and Sophia, every glance, every moment when they were both absent from the group. When it was time to leave, Rebecca hugged Sophia goodbye and whispered in her ear, "Those earrings are beautiful. They suit you perfectly." Sophia pulled back with panic in her eyes. "Thank you," she said quietly. In the car, Rebecca waited until they were several blocks away before speaking. "Marcus, I found something in your closet yesterday." "Oh." He kept his eyes on the road, but she saw his hands tighten on the steering wheel. "A Cartier bag, empty, with a receipt for diamond earrings. That's your anniversary present," he said quickly. "You weren't supposed to find that. Our anniversary isn't for 3 weeks. I bought them early. I wanted to make sure they were perfect." Rebecca studied his profile in the dim light from the dashboard. He was lying. She knew it with the same certainty she knew her own name, but she wasn't ready to confront him. Not yet, not until she had proof. "They must be beautiful," she said. "They are. You'll love them." That night, after Marcus fell asleep, Rebecca crept down to his car in the garage. She used the flashlight on her phone to search the interior carefully, running her hands along the seats and checking the floor mats. Under the passenger seat, she found it, a single gold earring with a small diamond. The match to the ones Sophia had been wearing. Rebecca sat in the dark garage, holding the earring in her palm, feeling the last of her denial crumble away. Her billionaire husband was having an affair with her cousin, her family, her blood, and tomorrow, she was going to do something about it. "Mrs. Matthews, you might want to sit down for this," the private investigator said, sliding photos across the desk. "And I recommend you call your doctor first." Rebecca's hands trembled as she reached for the manila envelope that contained 3 weeks of surveillance photos. Thomas Morrison, the private investigator, watched her with professional sympathy from behind his desk. His office was small and functional, nothing like the gleaming corporate spaces Marcus preferred, but Rebecca found the simplicity comforting. "How bad is it?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm afraid it's exactly what you suspected. Your husband is having an affair with your cousin Sophia Grant. The relationship appears to be serious and ongoing." Rebecca opened the envelope and immediately wished she hadn't. The first photo showed Marcus and Sophia entering the Ritz-Carlton together, her hand on his arm, both of them laughing. They looked like any other couple, comfortable and intimate in a way that made Rebecca's chest tighten with pain. "These were taken last Tuesday," Morrison explained. "The same day your husband told you he was working late on a merger." The next photo showed them at an upscale restaurant in Santa Monica, sitting close together across a small table. Marcus's hand covered Sophia's on the tablecloth, and she was leaning toward him with an expression of complete adoration. Rebecca had never seen her cousin look at anyone that way. "They met for lunch first, then checked into the hotel," Morrison continued. "They stayed for approximately 3 hours." Rebecca flipped through more photos, each one a knife twist in her heart. Marcus carrying shopping bags from expensive boutiques while Sophia walked beside him. The two of them in Marcus's car stopped at a red light, sharing what was clearly an intimate moment. Sophia leaving her apartment building while Marcus waited in the street, hidden from view but captured by Morrison's telephoto lens. "How long has this been going on?" Rebecca asked. "Based on the patterns I've observed and the credit card activity you provided, I'd estimate approximately 3 months. The affair appears to have started in late July. Rebecca's due date was in December, 3 months ago. She had been glowing with early pregnancy joy, finally feeling comfortable enough to announce their news to family and friends. She had been planning their baby's nursery while Marcus was planning his betrayal. "There's something else," Morrison said gently. "Something I discovered yesterday that changes the nature of this investigation significantly." Rebecca looked up from the photos, dreading what he might say next. "Your cousin has been to a doctor's office, an obstetrics practice in Beverly Hills. She's been there 3 times in the past 2 weeks." The words hit Rebecca like a physical blow. She gripped the edge of Morrison's desk as the room seemed to spin around her. "She's pregnant. I can't confirm that definitively without access to medical records, but the pattern is consistent with early prenatal care. The timing would suggest conception occurred sometime in August." Rebecca's mind raced, calculating dates. August, 2 months after she had announced her own pregnancy to the family. 2 months after Marcus had promised her they were going to be the perfect family. "Mrs. Matthews, I need you to understand the legal implications of this situation," Morrison continued. "If your cousin is pregnant with your husband's child, it significantly complicates any potential divorce proceedings. Asset division, custody arrangements, spousal support, everything becomes more complex when there are multiple children involved. Multiple children, Rebecca repeated numbly. She pressed her hand to her belly, where her daughter was performing her usual afternoon gymnastics routine. Her baby girl, who was supposed to be Marcus's first child, his beloved daughter. Now she might be sharing that status with a half-sibling born to Rebecca's own cousin. I recommend you consult with a family law attorney immediately, Morrison said. Even if you decide to work things out with your husband, you need to understand your legal position. Rebecca nodded absently, still staring at the photos. In one of them, Marcus was opening a car door for Sophia, his hand protective on her lower back. It was the same gesture he made for Rebecca every day, but seeing him do it for someone else felt like watching a stranger inhabit her husband's body. There's one more thing, Morrison said, hesitating. I followed your cousin yesterday after her doctor's appointment. She went to see her father, Uncle James. She was at the district attorney's office for over an hour. I don't know what they discussed, but she appeared upset when she left. Rebecca felt a new wave of panic wash over her. James Grant was not just her uncle. He was one of the most powerful law enforcement officials in Los Angeles County. If Sophia had told him about the affair, about her pregnancy, it could complicate everything. James had always been protective of his daughters, and Rebecca didn't want to imagine what he might do if he learned Marcus had gotten Sophia pregnant. I need copies of everything, Rebecca said, gathering the photos back into the envelope. Every photo, every report, every piece of evidence you've collected. Of course, I'll have everything ready for you by tomorrow morning. Rebecca stood carefully, using the chair arm for support. At 32 weeks pregnant, every movement required thought and planning. She felt older than her 32 years, exhausted by the weight of carrying both a baby and the knowledge of her husband's betrayal. Mr. Morrison, I want you to continue the surveillance for now, but be careful. My uncle is the district attorney, and my husband has resources you can't imagine. If either of them discovers what you're doing, I understand. I've been doing this for 20 years. Mrs. Matthews, I know how to stay invisible. As Rebecca drove home through the late afternoon traffic, her phone rang. Marcus. Hey, beautiful. How was your day? Fine, she said, surprised by how normal her voice sounded. Just ran some errands. Good. Listen, I'm going to be late again tonight. This merger is really heating up, and I need to stay focused. Rebecca glanced at the manila envelope on the passenger seat. Of course. Take all the time you need. You're the best wife in the world. You know that I love you so much. I love you too, she said automatically, the words feeling like ash in her mouth. After hanging up, Rebecca pulled over in a parking lot and called her best friend Hannah. Rebecca, what's wrong? You sound awful. Can you meet me for coffee? I need to talk to someone, and I need legal advice. Oh, honey, what happened? Marcus is having an affair with Sophia, and she's pregnant. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Hannah Price was a divorce attorney who had seen every variation of marital betrayal imaginable, but Rebecca could hear her shock. Are you sure? I have photos. I have credit card records. I have everything except a confession. Where are you? I'm coming to get you right now. I'm fine to drive. Can you meet me at that coffee shop near your office? I'll be there in 15 minutes. And Rebecca, don't do anything until we talk. Don't confront him. Don't make any decisions. Don't tell anyone else. Promise me? I promise. But as Rebecca hung up and started driving toward Hannah's office, she knew that promise would be impossible to keep, because tomorrow night was her cousin Sophia's birthday party, and for the first time in her life, Rebecca was planning to attend a family gathering while knowing secrets that could destroy everything. Her billionaire husband thought he could lie to her face while she carried his child. Her cousin thought she could seduce Rebecca's husband and get away with it. Her family thought she was naive and trusting, too focused on her pregnancy to notice what was happening around her. They were all about to learn how wrong they were. Which one of you is going to tell me, or do I have to guess whose baby Sophia is carrying? Rebecca demanded, standing in her own living room facing both her husband and cousin. The words hung in the air like smoke from an explosion. Marcus went completely still, his face draining of color, while Sophia made a small, choked sound and pressed her hand to her mouth. Rebecca had been planning this confrontation for days, But now that the moment was here, she felt surprisingly calm. She had invited Sophia over for lunch, claiming she wanted to talk about baby preparations and get advice from someone closer to her age. Marcus had been supposed to be at work, but Rebecca had asked him to come home early, telling him she had exciting news to share. Now they were all here in the living room of their Beverly Hills mansion, surrounded by the life Rebecca had thought was perfect just 1 week ago. "Rebecca," Marcus started, his voice strained. "I don't know what you think you know, but I know about the hotel rooms," Rebecca interrupted, pulling the surveillance photos from her purse. "I know about the jewelry. I know about the restaurants and the shopping trips and the 3-hour lunch dates." She threw the photos onto the coffee table between them. "And I know about the prenatal appointments." Sophia crumpled into one of the cream-colored armchairs, her face buried in her hands. She was wearing another new outfit, Rebecca noticed. A designer maternity top that probably cost more than most people made in a week. Her billionaire husband's money, spent on his pregnant mistress. "Sophia is 10 weeks pregnant," Rebecca continued, her voice steady despite the rage building in her chest. "Which means this affair started right around the time I announced I was having your baby. Marcus, right around the time you promised me we were going to be the perfect family." "It's not what you think," Marcus said desperately. "It just happened. We never planned it. It doesn't mean anything." "Doesn't mean anything." Rebecca's calm facade cracked. "She's having your baby. How can you stand there and tell me it doesn't mean anything?" Sophia looked up, her eyes red with tears. "Rebecca, I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. I tried to stay away, but I couldn't. I love him." The admission hit Rebecca like a slap. "You love him? He's my husband." I know it's wrong, but I can't help how I feel." "How long?" Rebecca asked, turning back to Marcus. "How long have you been in love with my cousin?" Marcus ran his hands through his hair, a gesture Rebecca had once found endearing. Now it just looked like the panic of a caught liar. "Rebecca, please. Let me explain." "Then explain. Start from the beginning. Tell me how you decided to destroy our marriage and our family for someone who's been at our dinner table since she was a child." "It started at James's birthday party in July," Sophia said quietly. "We were both outside by the pool, and we just started talking. Really talking. About art, about dreams, about feeling trapped in lives that other people designed for us." Rebecca remembered that party. She had been exhausted from first trimester morning sickness and had gone to bed early, leaving Marcus to help with cleanup. He had come home hours later, claiming traffic had been terrible. "And then what?" Rebecca asked. "We started texting," Marcus said. "Just as friends at first. Sophia was going through a hard time with her art career, and I was feeling overwhelmed with work pressure. We understood each other." "When did you decide to sleep together?" Both of them flinched at her bluntness, but Rebecca was past caring about their comfort. Her marriage was over, her family was destroyed, and her unborn daughter was going to grow up in a broken home. She deserved the truth, all of it. "The first time was in August," Sophia whispered. "I was having a gallery showing, and Marcus came to support me. You were at that spa weekend with Hannah. Remember?" Rebecca remembered. She had been 6 months pregnant and feeling huge and uncomfortable. Hannah had insisted on treating her to a weekend of prenatal massages and relaxation at a resort in Santa Barbara. She had felt guilty about leaving Marcus alone, but he had encouraged her to go, saying she deserved to be pampered. "You planned it," she realized. "You convinced me to go away so you could be together." "No," Marcus said quickly. "It wasn't planned. It just happened. But you didn't stop it from happening again." Neither of them answered, which was answer enough. Rebecca felt a familiar tightening in her lower abdomen and pressed her hand to her belly. Stress contractions. Her doctor had warned her about them, told her to avoid emotional upheavals that could trigger premature labor. But there was no avoiding this conversation. "I want to know everything," she said. "Every lie you told me, every time you were together, every promise you made her that you were going to leave me." "I never promised to leave you," Marcus protested. "Yes, you did," Sophia said, looking at him with betrayal in her eyes. "You told me after the baby was born, when Rebecca was settled into motherhood, you would ask for a divorce. You said you couldn't leave a pregnant woman, but you could leave a new mother." The casual cruelty of it took Rebecca's breath away. Marcus had planned to let her go through pregnancy and childbirth, believing in their marriage, only to abandon her when she was most vulnerable. He was going to let her fall in love with their daughter, establish breastfeeding, settle into new motherhood, and then destroy her world. "You bastard," she whispered. "Rebecca, that's not how it happened. Sophia is confused about what I said." "I'm not confused." Sophia stood up, her voice rising. "You told me you loved me. You told me we were going to be together. You bought me a ring." "A ring!" Rebecca's voice was deadly quiet. Sophia pulled a small velvet box from her purse and opened it. Inside was a diamond solitaire, smaller than Rebecca's engagement ring but still clearly expensive. "He gave it to me last week. He said it was a promise ring, that as soon as the divorce was final, he'd replace it with a real engagement ring." Rebecca stared at the ring, feeling something break inside her chest. Not her heart that had broken days ago when she first saw the credit card charges. This was something deeper, her faith in the goodness of people, her belief that family meant something, her trust in her own judgment. "Get out," she said quietly. "Rebecca, please." Marcus started. "Get out!" she screamed, the words tearing from her throat with such force that both Marcus and Sophia jumped. "Both of you, get out of my house! Get out of my sight! Get out!" Sophia grabbed her purse and ran for the door, sobbing. Marcus hesitated, reaching toward Rebecca as if to touch her. "Don't," she said, backing away from him. "Don't you dare touch me. Don't you dare pretend you care about me or this baby after what you've done. I do care about you. I never wanted to hurt you. Then you should have kept your dick in your pants." Marcus flinched at her language. In 7 years of marriage, Rebecca had never spoken to him that way. She had been the perfect wife, supportive and loving, and endlessly understanding of his work demands. She had been everything he claimed to want in a partner, and he had thrown it all away for her cousin. "I'll stay at the downtown apartment tonight," Marcus said. "Give you some space to process this." "Don't bother coming back," Rebecca said. "I'm calling my lawyer in the morning." "Rebecca, we can work through this. People make mistakes. We can go to counseling. We can fix this." "Fix what? Your affair, her pregnancy. The fact that you bought her an engagement ring while I'm carrying your child?" Rebecca's voice rose again. "There's nothing left to fix. Marcus, you killed our marriage the day you decided my cousin was more important than your pregnant wife." As the front door closed behind them, Rebecca sank onto the couch, finally allowing herself to cry. Deep, wrenching sobs that seemed to come from the very center of her being. Her billionaire husband was gone. Her marriage was over. Her family was destroyed. And she still had 3 months of pregnancy left to endure. But as she sat there crying, Rebecca felt something else beneath the grief and betrayal. Anger. Pure, clean anger that cut through the pain like a blade. Marcus and Sophia thought they could destroy her life and walk away unscathed. They thought she would be the perfect victim, too devastated to fight back. They had no idea who they were dealing with. Rebecca wiped her eyes and reached for her phone. She had calls to make, a lawyer to hire, a divorce to file, and a conversation with Uncle James that was going to change everything. Her water broke 20 minutes later, sending her into panic mode as she called 911. But it turned out to be false labor, brought on by stress and emotional trauma. The EMTs checked her over in the hospital emergency room and sent her home with instructions to rest and avoid confrontation. Too bad. The confrontations were just getting started. "Rebecca, there are things about this situation you don't understand," Uncle James said, his district attorney voice replacing his family tone. "Things that could destroy more than just your marriage." Rebecca sat across from her uncle in his downtown office, trying to process what he had just told her. She had come here looking for family support after confronting Marcus and Sophia, but instead she had walked into a nightmare that made her personal crisis look small by comparison. "Let me make sure I understand this correctly," she said slowly. "You've been investigating Marcus for federal crimes. The FBI has been building a case against your husband for 18 months, James confirmed. Money laundering, tax evasion, wire fraud. We believe he's been using his company to hide assets overseas and manipulate stock prices through insider trading." Rebecca felt dizzy. "That's impossible. Marcus runs a legitimate tech company. He develops software for financial institutions, which gives him perfect cover for moving money around in ways that are difficult to trace. James leaned forward, his expression grim. Rebecca, your husband isn't just wealthy, he's criminally wealthy. The legitimate parts of his business can't account for the lifestyle you've been living. Our accountants handle everything. I've never seen anything suspicious in our finances. Because you only see the clean money, the offshore accounts, the shell companies, the cryptocurrency transactions, none of that shows up in your household budget. Rebecca thought about their mansion, Marcus's collection of luxury cars, the private jet they used for vacations. She had always assumed his tech company was simply more successful than she realized. But 18 months of federal investigation suggested something much darker. What does this have to do with Sophia? She asked. James's expression grew even more troubled. That's where things get complicated. Sophia came to see me yesterday, very upset. She told me about the affair in her pregnancy, but she also told me something that changes everything about this investigation. What? Marcus has been using her art career as a money laundering operation. Those expensive pieces she's been selling through galleries, the buyers are shell companies he controls. He's been purchasing her artwork at inflated prices as a way to move illegal money through the art market. Rebecca felt the room spin around her. Sophia is involved in money laundering. We don't think she knew what she was doing, at least not initially. Marcus convinced her he was simply helping her career by connecting her with wealthy collectors. But the transaction amounts and frequency suggest she became aware that something wasn't legitimate. How much money are we talking about? Over the past 6 months, nearly $2 million in fake art sales? Rebecca pressed her hand to her mouth, feeling nauseous. Her cousin had been living off illegal money from Rebecca's husband while carrying his child. The betrayal had layers she was only beginning to understand. There's more, James continued. When Sophia realized what was happening, she tried to break off the affair. That's when Marcus told her she was in too deep to walk away. He threatened to frame her as a willing conspirator in the money laundering if she didn't continue helping him. So he coerced her into the financial crimes. Yes, the affair appears to have been genuine on both sides, which is what makes this situation so complicated. James rubbed his temples. Sophia is pregnant with the child of a man who's been using her to commit federal crimes. She's terrified of going to prison, but she's also terrified of testifying against him. Rebecca felt a stab of unwilling sympathy for her cousin. Sophia had been naive and foolish to get involved with Marcus, but she hadn't deserved to be manipulated into criminal activity. What happens now? Rebecca asked. That depends on several factors. If Sophia cooperates with the investigation, we can probably get her immunity in exchange for her testimony. But her pregnancy complicates everything. A defense attorney will argue that Marcus exploited a vulnerable young woman, and a jury might be sympathetic to that narrative. And what about me? Am I implicated in any of this? James looked uncomfortable. Your name is on several of the accounts we're investigating. Legally, you could be considered a conspirator even if you had no knowledge of the crimes. That's ridiculous. I've never even seen those accounts. I know that, and I believe that, but proving your innocence could be difficult, especially if Marcus decides to claim you were aware of his activities. Rebecca felt trapped, caught between her husband's crimes and her uncle's investigation. What are you asking me to do? I need you to cooperate with the FBI. Help us understand Marcus's business operations. Provide access to documents and computer files. Wear a wire if necessary. You want me to spy on my husband while I'm pregnant with his child. I want you to help us put a criminal in prison before he can destroy more lives. Rebecca stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the Los Angeles skyline. Somewhere out there, Marcus was probably with Sophia, planning their future together while federal agents built a case that could send them both to prison. There's something else you need to know, James said quietly. We have reason to believe Marcus is planning to flee the country. He's been moving larger amounts of money offshore in the past month, and he's made inquiries about countries that don't have extradition treaties with the United States. He's going to run, probably after your baby is born. He'll want to establish paternity and custody rights first, then disappear with enough money to live comfortably abroad. Rebecca felt another wave of betrayal wash over her. Marcus wasn't just leaving her for another woman. He was planning to abandon their daughter entirely, taking his criminal fortune and starting over in a country where American law couldn't touch him. He would do that to his own child. Men like Marcus don't think about anyone but themselves. Your daughter is just leverage to him now, a way to control you and keep you from cooperating with law enforcement. Rebecca turned back to face her uncle. What happens if I don't cooperate with you? Then Marcus probably gets away with everything. Sophia goes to prison as his scapegoat, and you're left trying to prove your innocence while raising a child whose father is a fugitive. And if I do cooperate, then we have a chance to stop him before he can disappear. We can protect you and Sophia from prosecution, and we can make sure your daughter doesn't grow up with a criminal for a father. Rebecca sat back down, feeling the weight of the decision pressing down on her. She was 8 months pregnant, emotionally devastated by her husband's betrayal, and now being asked to help send him to federal prison. I need time to think about this, she said. We don't have much time. Our sources suggest Marcus is planning to accelerate his timeline. He knows Sophia talked to me, and he'll assume we're closing in on him. As if summoned by their conversation, James's assistant knocked on the door. Sir, there are FBI agents here to see Mrs. Matthews. They have a search warrant for her home. Rebecca felt the blood drain from her face. They're searching my house. It's happening now, James said grimly. Marcus's criminal activities have officially become a federal case. And whether you like it or not, you're right in the middle of it. Outside the office windows, the Los Angeles sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. Rebecca watched the lights come on in the buildings around them, each one representing someone else's life, someone else's problems that suddenly seemed much simpler than her own. Her billionaire husband was a criminal who was planning to abandon her and their unborn child. Her cousin was pregnant with his baby and involved in money laundering. Her uncle was asking her to risk everything to help convict the father of her child. And somewhere in Beverly Hills, federal agents were going through her home, looking for evidence that could destroy what was left of her life. Rebecca placed her hand on her belly, feeling her daughter's strong kicks. In 2 months, she would be born into this chaos, this web of betrayal and crime and federal investigations. But she would not be born to a father who thought he could manipulate and abandon the people who loved him. Uncle James, Rebecca said quietly, tell the FBI I'll cooperate, but I want immunity for both Sophia and myself, and I want protection for my daughter. Done. And one more thing. When this is over, when Marcus is in prison where he belongs, I want to make sure he never gets near my child again. James nodded grimly. We'll make that happen. As Rebecca left the district attorney's office, she felt a strange sense of calm settle over her. For weeks, she had been reacting to other people's choices, other people's betrayals, other people's crimes. But now she was taking action. Her billionaire husband thought he could destroy her life and escape the consequences. He was about to learn how wrong he was. Ma'am, we need to know everything about your husband's offshore accounts, the FBI agent said, setting up recording equipment in Rebecca's kitchen while she tried to eat crackers for her morning sickness. Special Agent Maria Rodriguez was a compact woman in her 40s, with steel gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. She had been investigating financial crimes for 15 years, and she spoke about Marcus's illegal activities with the casual professionalism of someone who had seen it all before. I've never heard of any offshore accounts, Rebecca said, struggling to keep the crackers down. At 33 weeks pregnant, her morning sickness had returned with a vengeance, made worse by stress and the constant fear of what she might discover next about her husband's double life. These documents suggest otherwise, Agent Rodriguez said, spreading financial papers across Rebecca's kitchen table. Your name appears as a co-signatory on accounts in the Cayman Islands, Switzerland, and Singapore. Total value is approximately $47 million. Rebecca stared at the bank statements, recognizing her own signature on forms she had never seen before. I didn't sign these. I've never even been to any of those countries. We believe your husband forged your signature, but proving that will require your full cooperation. Agent Rodriguez activated the recording device. This conversation is being recorded for the purposes of a federal investigation into financial crimes committed by Marcus Matthews. Mrs. Matthews, do you consent to this recording? Yes, Rebecca said, her voice sounding strange and distant to her own ears. Can you tell me about your husband's business associates? Anyone who might have helped him move money offshore? Rebecca thought about the endless stream of men in expensive suits who had attended Marcus's business dinners over the years. She had always smiled and played the perfect wife, never really listening to their conversations about deals and investments and market opportunities. "There's David Cooper," she said, "Marcus's business partner. They've been friends since college, and David handles a lot of the international expansion for their company." Agent Rodriguez made a note. "Anyone else?" "There are investors, board members. I don't really know them well. Marcus always said business was too boring for me to worry about." "What about your cousin Sophia Grant? How long has she been selling artwork to your husband's associates?" Rebecca felt a familiar stab of pain at her cousin's name. "I didn't know she was selling anything to them until Uncle James told me yesterday. I thought she was struggling financially." "She was until about 6 months ago. That's when the art sales started. High-end pieces sold to buyers who paid in cash and never took possession of the artwork." "Where are the paintings?" "Most of them don't exist. Your cousin was billing for artwork she never created, then splitting the money with your husband. It's a classic money laundering operation disguised as art transactions." Rebecca pressed her hand to her belly as their daughter kicked hard against her ribs. "How much did she make?" "Nearly $2 million over 6 months, more than most successful artists make in their entire careers." The number was staggering. Rebecca's household budget was generous, but $2 million was more than they spent on personal expenses in a year. Sophia had been living like a wealthy woman while Rebecca budgeted for baby furniture and maternity clothes. "Agent Rodriguez, what happens to the money once you seize it?" "Assets purchased with criminal proceeds are forfeited to the government. That includes the money in the offshore accounts, but it also includes anything your husband bought with illegal funds." Rebecca felt a chill run down her spine. "What do you mean, your house, your cars, jewelry, investments? If we can prove they were purchased with money from criminal activities, they can all be seized." "This house." Rebecca looked around the kitchen of the Beverly Hills mansion she had called home for 3 years. "This is where I'm planning to bring my baby home from the hospital. We're not interested in making a pregnant woman homeless," Agent Rodriguez said gently, "but you need to understand the scope of what we're dealing with. Your husband's legitimate business income couldn't support your lifestyle. Almost everything you own was probably purchased with illegal money." Rebecca felt dizzy, whether from pregnancy or shock. She couldn't tell. "How is that possible? I manage our household accounts. I see the money coming in from his company." "The company income is real, but it's only a small fraction of what your husband actually spends. The rest comes from cryptocurrency fraud, stock manipulation, and money laundering through businesses like your cousin's art sales." Agent Rodriguez pulled out a tablet and showed Rebecca a complex chart mapping money flows between dozens of accounts and shell companies. "This is what we've been able to trace so far. Every line represents money moving from criminal activities to legitimate-looking investments." "I don't understand how any of this works." "You're not supposed to. That's what makes it effective. Your husband creates layers of complexity that make it nearly impossible for anyone to follow the money trail without a full federal investigation." Rebecca studied the chart, seeing her name attached to several of the accounts. "If my name is on these accounts, why haven't I ever seen statements or documents?" "Because your husband controls all the communication with these banks. The statements go to post office boxes or business addresses you don't know about. You were probably added to the accounts for legitimacy, not because he intended to give you access. So I'm a criminal without knowing it. You're a victim of identity theft and fraud, but proving that requires your cooperation in building a case against your husband." Agent Rodriguez's phone buzzed, and she glanced at it before standing up. "Mrs. Matthews, we just received word that your husband has booked a flight to Costa Rica for next week. One-way ticket." Rebecca felt her heart skip a beat. "He's leaving?" "It appears so, and Costa Rica doesn't have an extradition treaty with the United States for financial crimes." "What about Sophia? Is he taking her with him?" "We don't know, but if he's planning to flee, we need to move quickly. Are you willing to help us gather evidence before he disappears?" Rebecca thought about her daughter, due to be born in just 7 weeks. If Marcus fled the country, she would be a single mother with no financial support and potentially facing criminal charges herself. But if she helped the FBI, she would be actively working to send her child's father to prison. "What would you need me to do?" "We need you to act normal. Continue living with your husband, attend social events, participate in business dinners, but you'll be wearing a recording device and we'll be monitoring all communications." "You want me to spy on him while I'm 8 months pregnant? We want you to help us prevent him from escaping justice and abandoning his responsibilities to you and your child." Rebecca stood up and walked to the window overlooking their backyard pool. Marcus had proposed to her by that pool, promising her a lifetime of love and security. Now federal agents were asking her to help destroy the man she had planned to spend her life with. "Agent Rodriguez, if I do this, what happens to my baby? If we can convict your husband before he flees, we can pursue civil remedies to recover stolen assets. That means you and your daughter could receive financial support even while he serves his prison sentence. And if he gets away, then you're on your own, facing potential criminal charges and financial ruin." Rebecca's phone buzzed with a text message. "Marcus, coming home early today. Want to talk about our future? Love you both." She showed the message to Agent Rodriguez, who nodded grimly. "He's probably planning to tell you about the trip to Costa Rica. This is your chance to find out his real plans." Rebecca thought about Sophia, pregnant and terrified, caught between her father's investigation and her lover's crimes. She thought about Uncle James, trying to balance family loyalty with his duty as a prosecutor. She thought about her unborn daughter, innocent of her father's sins but destined to suffer for them. "I'll do it," she said quietly. "But I want Sophia to get immunity, and I want protection for my family." "Done." As Agent Rodriguez packed up her equipment, she paused at the door. "Mrs. Matthews, I need you to understand something. Your husband isn't just a white-collar criminal. Men who steal this much money and plan to flee the country can become dangerous when they feel cornered. If you sense any threat to your safety or your pregnancy, you call me immediately." Rebecca nodded, but she wasn't really worried about physical danger. Marcus had never been violent, never even raised his voice to her in 7 years of marriage. The threat he posed was more subtle but equally devastating. He could destroy her reputation, her financial security, her faith in her own judgment, but he couldn't touch the love she already felt for their daughter, and that love was going to give her the strength to see this through. When Marcus came home that evening, Rebecca was waiting for him in the living room, her hands folded over her pregnant belly, a recording device hidden in her maternity blouse. Her billionaire husband thought he could escape the consequences of his crimes. He was about to discover that his pregnant wife had become his worst nightmare. "She seduced him on purpose," Aunt Catherine screamed at Rebecca, "to protect our family from what he knows about James." The Grant family living room erupted in chaos as Catherine's accusation hung in the air like poison gas. Rebecca sat heavily in the center of the storm, 34 weeks pregnant and exhausted from weeks of wearing FBI recording devices and gathering evidence against her own husband. She had come here hoping for family support, but instead she had walked into a confrontation that shattered what remained of her illusions about the people she loved. "That's not true," Sophia cried, her own pregnancy now visible beneath her loose sweater. "I never meant for any of this to happen. Don't lie to us," Catherine snapped. "You think we don't know what your father has been doing, trading information for campaign contributions, taking bribes from defense attorneys, protecting criminals in exchange for political support?" Rebecca felt the world tilt around her. "Uncle James, what is she talking about?" James Grant sat in his leather armchair, looking older than his 55 years. The commanding presence that served him so well in court had crumbled, leaving behind a man who looked defeated and scared. "There are things you don't understand, Rebecca," he said quietly. "Things I did to protect this family's future." "What things?" "Your uncle has been selling information about ongoing investigations," Catherine said bitterly. "He tips off wealthy defendants about planned raids, warns them when grand juries are being convened, helps them move assets before they can be seized." Rebecca stared at her uncle in horror. "You're corrupt. I'm practical," James said. "Do you have any idea what it costs to maintain a family like ours? Private schools, college tuition, this house, our social standing. A district attorney's salary doesn't cover that kind of lifestyle. So you decided to become a criminal. I decided to be selective about which cases deserve my full attention," James corrected. "White-collar crime is a victimless offense in most cases. Rich people stealing from other rich people. Why should I destroy my family's future to protect some billionaire's tax write-offs?" Sophia was crying now, her hands pressed to her small belly. "Dad, you said you were just gathering information. You said Marcus was dangerous and we needed to know what he was planning. I was protecting you. James snapped. When I learned about your involvement with Marcus's money laundering operation, I needed to know how deep it went. I couldn't let you go to prison for that bastard's crimes. Rebecca felt sick as the pieces fell into place. You sent Sophia to seduce Marcus so she could spy on him. I told her to get close to him, to find out what he knew about our family's business arrangements. I never told her to sleep with him. But that's what happened, Catherine said coldly. Our daughter prostituted herself for information, and now she's pregnant with the child of a man who could destroy her father's career. I fell in love with him, Sophia whispered. It wasn't supposed to happen, but I did, and he fell in love with me too. He didn't fall in love with you, Rebecca said, her voice sharp with pain and anger. He used you, just like he used me. Marcus doesn't love anyone but himself. That's not true. You don't know him the way I do. I know him better than anyone. I've been recording his conversations for the FBI for 3 weeks. I've heard him plan to abandon both of us and flee to Costa Rica with $47 million in stolen money. The room went silent. Even Catherine stopped pacing, her face draining of color. You're working with the FBI, James asked. Someone had to. My husband is a criminal, my cousin is pregnant with his child, and my uncle is taking bribes from defense attorneys. The only way to protect my daughter from this mess is to cooperate with federal law enforcement. You naive little fool, Catherine said. Do you have any idea what you've done? If the FBI investigates James, it destroys all of us. His pension, his reputation, our family's social standing, everything we've worked for. Maybe you should have thought of that before you decided to become criminals? James stood up slowly, his face grave. Rebecca, I need you to understand something. The FBI isn't just investigating Marcus. They're investigating me too. And if they have evidence of my activities, they'll use it to pressure you into testifying against your own family. Good. Maybe it's time this family faced some consequences for their choices. Your daughter will grow up with a grandfather in federal prison, Catherine said viciously. Is that what you want? Rebecca felt a sharp pain in her lower back, the familiar tightening that meant stress contractions were starting. She had been having them for days, her body responding to the constant pressure of living a double life while 8 months pregnant. My daughter will grow up knowing the difference between right and wrong, she said through gritted teeth. Something the rest of this family seems to have forgotten. Sophia looked up from her chair, tears streaming down her face. Rebecca, I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. I tried to stay away from Marcus, but Dad kept pushing me to get more information, and Marcus was so charming and understanding, and I was so lonely. You were lonely. You destroyed my marriage because you were lonely. It wasn't like that. It was real. What Marcus and I have is real. Rebecca felt another contraction, stronger this time. Sophia, what you and Marcus have is a federal crime and a family tragedy. That's all it is. You're just jealous because he chose me over you, Sophia said, her grief turning to anger. You're pregnant and tired and boring, and he found someone young and beautiful who actually understands him. The words hit Rebecca like a physical blow, but before she could respond, the pain in her back intensified dramatically. She doubled over, gasping as the contraction peaked. Something's wrong, she managed to say. Catherine rushed to her side, her anger forgotten in the face of medical crisis. James, call 911. She's in labor. It's too early, Rebecca said, panic rising in her throat. The baby isn't due for 6 weeks. But even as she said it, she felt fluid gushing between her legs. Her water had broken, and the contractions were coming fast and hard. This is your fault, Catherine said to Sophia as they waited for the ambulance. All of this stress, all of this drama, you've put her into premature labor. It's not my fault, Sophia protested. It's the FBI investigation. It's the recordings. It's the pressure from everyone. It's the consequences of our choices, James said quietly. All of our choices. As the paramedics loaded Rebecca into the ambulance, she felt another powerful contraction grip her body. Her daughter was coming, whether she was ready or not. And somewhere in Los Angeles, Marcus was probably planning his escape to Costa Rica, unaware that his pregnant wife was in active labor and his criminal empire was about to collapse around him. Rebecca's phone buzzed with a text message as the ambulance sped through traffic. Agent Rodriguez. Are you okay? Your recording device went offline. With shaking fingers, Rebecca typed back, in labor, baby coming early. Marcus doesn't know. The response came immediately. On our way to the hospital, don't let Marcus know about the labor until we can monitor the situation. But as they arrived at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, Rebecca saw a familiar figure in the parking lot. Marcus, running toward the ambulance with panic written across his face. Someone had already told him, and now he was here, ready to play the role of concerned husband and expectant father. The man who was planning to abandon his family and flee to Costa Rica in 48 hours was about to watch his daughter being born 6 weeks early. Rebecca closed her eyes and prepared for the most complicated delivery in the history of obstetrics. Your baby is coming whether we're ready or not, Dr. Wells said, as Rebecca gripped the hospital bed rails. And there are reporters outside asking about your husband's whereabouts. The labor and delivery room at Cedars-Sinai had become the epicenter of a federal investigation, a family crisis, and a media circus. Rebecca's premature labor was progressing rapidly, her contractions coming every 2 minutes as FBI agents stood guard outside her door and news crews gathered in the hospital parking lot. How did the reporters find out? Rebecca gasped between contractions. Someone leaked information about Marcus's federal investigation. Dr. Patricia Wells said, checking Rebecca's cervix. You're at 8 centimeters. This baby is coming fast. Marcus stood beside Rebecca's bed, holding her hand and playing the role of devoted husband perfectly. But Rebecca could see the calculation in his eyes, the way he kept glancing at his phone, the tension in his shoulders that had nothing to do with concern for her or their daughter. Everything's going to be fine, he said, stroking her hair. Our little girl is strong. She's going to be perfect. Rebecca wanted to scream at him. She wanted to tell him she knew about Costa Rica, about the $47 million, about his plan to abandon them both. But the FBI recording device was still hidden in her hospital gown, and Agent Rodriguez had instructed her to keep gathering evidence until the very last moment. Marcus, she said through another contraction. What's this about reporters asking about your whereabouts? His hand tightened on hers. Just business nonsense. Some competitor spreading rumors about our company. Nothing for you to worry about. But federal investigators. Rebecca, focus on having our baby. Everything else can wait. Dr. Wells looked up from between Rebecca's legs, her expression concerned. The baby's heart rate is dropping. We need to consider a cesarean section. No, Rebecca said immediately. I want to deliver naturally. If the baby's in distress, she's not in distress. She's just early. Rebecca gripped Marcus's hand harder as another contraction peaked. I can do this. Through the pain, she heard her phone buzzing with text messages. Agent Rodriguez, probably asking for updates. Hannah, her best friend and lawyer, who had been fielding calls from reporters all day. Uncle James, dealing with his own FBI investigation while his daughter and niece both face federal charges. Mrs. Matthews, Dr. Wells said gently, your blood pressure is elevated and the baby's heart rate is erratic. I really think we should consider surgical delivery. How much longer? Rebecca asked. You're at 9 centimeters. Maybe another hour if everything goes smoothly. An hour? Rebecca could endure another hour of this chaos if it meant protecting her daughter from an unnecessary surgery. But as she settled back against the pillows, the door opened and Sophia walked in. Rebecca's cousin looked pale and shaken, her own pregnancy visible beneath her loose sweater. She stood in the doorway uncertainly, as if unsure whether she would be welcome. I came as soon as I heard, Sophia said quietly. I'm in labor too. The words hit the room like a bomb. Marcus went completely still, his eyes widening as he processed what Sophia had just said. You're in labor, Dr. Wells asked. How far along are you? About 5 centimeters. But my contractions slowed down when I got here. The stress? Probably. Rebecca stared at her cousin in shock. We're having our babies on the same day. It looks that way. Marcus released Rebecca's hand and took a step toward Sophia. Are you okay? Is the baby okay? The concern in his voice, so different from the careful performance he had been giving Rebecca, cut through her like a knife. This was real emotion. This was how Marcus actually felt about Sophia and their child. I'm scared, Sophia admitted. I'm only 31 weeks. The baby isn't supposed to come for another 9 weeks. 31 weeks. Dr. Wells looked alarmed. That's extremely premature. We need to get you to another room immediately and start interventions to delay your labor. As the medical staff rushed to help Sophia, Rebecca felt another powerful contraction grip her body. But this time, the pain was different, sharper, more urgent. Something's wrong, she said. Dr. Wells rushed back to Rebecca's bedside and checked her again. The baby's presenting breech. We need to do a cesarean right now. Sovereign, no, Rebecca said, but her voice was weak. Rebecca, this isn't negotiable. The baby is in distress and you're hemorrhaging. The room exploded into controlled medical chaos. Nurses prepped Rebecca for emergency surgery while Dr. Wells shouted orders. Marcus stood frozen between Rebecca and Sophia, his face pale with panic. Which room should I go to? He asked a nurse. The question hung in the air like an accusation. In that moment, everyone in the room understood that Marcus had to choose between his wife and his mistress, between his legitimate child and his illegitimate one. Go with Sophia, Rebecca said quietly. She needs you more than I do. Rebecca, no, I'm staying with you. Go? Her voice was stronger now, filled with a certainty that surprised her. Go be with the woman you actually love. I'll be fine. As the medical team wheeled Rebecca toward the operating room, she saw Marcus take Sophia's hand and follow the nurses to another labor and delivery room. Even in crisis, even with his pregnant wife facing emergency surgery, he chose the other woman. But Rebecca wasn't alone. Agent Rodriguez appeared beside her gurney as they reached the OR. We arrested David Cooper an hour ago, she said quietly. He's cooperating. We have everything we need to convict Marcus, with or without your testimony. The baby is going to be fine, and when she's born, she'll have a mother who did the right thing, even when it was the hardest thing. As the anesthesia took effect, Rebecca's last conscious thought was of her daughter. Born into chaos, born 6 weeks early, born to a father who had already chosen someone else, but also born to a mother who would fight for her, protect her, and make sure she grew up knowing the difference between right and wrong. When Rebecca woke up 3 hours later, Dr. Wells was standing beside her bed with a bundle in her arms. Meet your daughter, she said softly. 4 pounds, 3 ounces. Small but perfect. Rebecca looked down at the tiny face peeking out from the pink blanket and felt her heart expand in ways she hadn't known were possible. Her daughter had dark hair like Marcus, but Rebecca's blue eyes, she was beautiful and fragile and completely innocent of the chaos that surrounded her birth. Where's Marcus? Rebecca asked. Still with Sophia. Her baby was born about an hour after yours. A boy, also premature but stable. Rebecca nodded, feeling strangely calm. And the FBI, Agent Rodriguez is waiting outside. Marcus has been arrested on federal charges. They took him into custody as he was leaving Sophia's room. Through the window, Rebecca could see the media circus in the parking lot growing larger. News vans, reporters, cameras pointed at the hospital windows. By tomorrow, the whole world would know that billionaire Marcus Matthews had been arrested for financial crimes while his wife and mistress gave birth to his children on the same day. But for now, in this quiet hospital room, there was just Rebecca and her daughter. The rest of the world could wait. What's her name, Dr. Wells asked. Rebecca had planned to name the baby Grace, after Marcus's grandmother. But looking down at her daughter's peaceful face, she knew that name belonged to the old life, the life built on lies and stolen money. Hope, she said. Her name is Hope, because that's what this tiny girl represented. Hope for a better future. Hope for truth over deception. Hope for a life built on something more solid than criminal money and family betrayal. Rebecca Matthews was no longer the naive wife of a billionaire criminal. She was the mother of Hope Matthews, and that was enough. I can give you everything you want, Marcus said, holding their newborn daughter. James in prison, Sophia destroyed, and our family back together. Or you can walk away and let me face the consequences alone. Rebecca stared at her husband from her hospital bed, barely believing what she was hearing. Marcus had been released on $50 million bail pending trial, his legal team working around the clock to keep him out of federal custody. Now he stood in her private room at Cedars-Sinai, their 3-day-old daughter in his arms, offering her a devil's bargain. "What are you talking about?" Rebecca asked, though part of her already knew. "I have evidence that will destroy your uncle's career and send him to federal prison for 20 years, Marcus said calmly. "Recorded conversations, financial records, documentation of every bribe he's taken and every case he's fixed. I also have proof that Sophia knew exactly what she was doing with the money laundering. She wasn't an innocent victim. She was a willing participant who got greedy." Rebecca felt Hope's small weight against her chest as she held her daughter close. The baby was still so tiny, barely 5 pounds even after 3 days in the NICU. But she was strong, her grip surprisingly firm when she wrapped her tiny fingers around Rebecca's thumb. "You're threatening my family. I'm offering you a choice. Help me fight these federal charges. Testify that you knew nothing about any illegal activities, and I'll make the evidence against James and Sophia disappear. We can move past this affair, go to couples counseling, rebuild our marriage. Hope deserves to grow up with both her parents. And if I don't help you," Marcus's expression hardened slightly, though he continued to stroke Hope's tiny hand with surprising gentleness, "then I'll have no choice but to use every piece of leverage I have. James will go to prison for corruption. Sophia will be charged as a conspirator in money laundering, and you'll be left explaining to our daughter why you chose to destroy your own family rather than forgive your husband's mistakes." Rebecca looked at her daughter's peaceful face and felt a rage so pure it surprised her. Marcus was using their newborn baby as a weapon, manipulating Rebecca's love for Hope to coerce her into helping him escape justice. "Those aren't mistakes, Marcus. Those are crimes. Felonies that you committed over and over again for years. White-collar crimes that hurt no one. Rich people moving money around to avoid paying taxes they can't afford anyway. Meanwhile, your uncle has been taking bribes from drug dealers and murderers, helping actual violent criminals escape justice. That doesn't make what you did right. Maybe not, but it makes me a lot less dangerous than the people your uncle has been protecting." Marcus moved closer to Rebecca's bed, still holding Hope. "Think about what's best for our daughter. Do you want her to grow up visiting her father in federal prison? Or would you rather she have a family flawed but together?" Rebecca's phone buzzed with a text message. Dr. Patricia Wells asking how she was feeling and reminding her about Hope's feeding schedule. Such a normal message in the middle of this surreal conversation about bribery and federal charges and family destruction. "What about Sophia?" Rebecca asked. "What about your son?" Marcus's jaw tightened. "That was a mistake. A huge mistake that I regret every day. But Sophia knew what she was getting into. She used the affair to gain information for her father, and then she got in too deep to back out. She's not an innocent victim. She's pregnant with your child. She's pregnant with a child I never wanted. A child that exists because she stopped taking birth control without telling me, hoping to trap me into leaving you." Rebecca felt sick. She sabotaged her birth control. She admitted it 3 days ago, when she realized I wasn't going to choose her over you and Hope. She thought a baby would force my hand, make me abandon my real family for her. The revelation changed everything and nothing. Sophia's manipulation didn't excuse Marcus's crimes or his betrayal, but it did explain the desperation Rebecca had seen in her cousin's eyes, the way she had clung to the fantasy that Marcus would actually leave his pregnant wife for her. "Where is she now?" Rebecca asked. "In the psychiatric ward. She had a breakdown after I told her I was choosing my real family. Tried to hurt herself and the baby." Rebecca closed her eyes, overwhelmed by the cascade of tragedy that had destroyed everyone she loved. Marcus was a criminal facing decades in prison. Sophia was mentally ill and alone with a newborn. Uncle James was corrupt and about to lose everything. And Rebecca was caught in the middle, holding the one innocent person in this entire mess. A knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. Agent Rodriguez entered, followed by Hannah Price, Rebecca's best friend and attorney. "Mrs. Matthews," Agent Rodriguez said formally, "I need to inform you that your husband is scheduled to be arrested again in approximately 1 hour. His bail has been revoked due to evidence that he's been attempting to flee the country." Marcus's face went pale, but he didn't release his hold on Hope. "That's impossible. I haven't left Los Angeles. You purchased tickets to Costa Rica under an assumed name," Agent Rodriguez continued. "You also transferred an additional $12 million to offshore accounts yesterday, in direct violation of your bail conditions." Rebecca felt the world spinning around her. Even now, even while holding their newborn daughter and promising to rebuild their family, Marcus had been planning his escape. "You were going to run," she said quietly. "Even after everything you just said about choosing our family." "I was keeping my options open," Marcus admitted. "The federal case against me is strong. I might not have any choice but to disappear." With or without us? Marcus hesitated just long enough for Rebecca to have her answer. He had been planning to abandon hope in her, just as Agent Rodriguez had predicted weeks ago. "Rebecca, you have to understand. Give me my daughter." Rebecca's voice was ice cold. "Rebecca, give me my daughter right now, or I'll scream for security." Marcus reluctantly placed hope in Rebecca's arms, and Rebecca felt the baby's warmth settle against her chest like a shield. Whatever happened next, she would protect this innocent child from the chaos her father had created. Hannah stepped forward, her expression professionally neutral. "Rebecca, we need to discuss your legal situation before Marcus is arrested." "What legal situation?" "The federal prosecutors are offering you complete immunity in exchange for your cooperation, but the offer expires when Marcus is taken into custody. After that, you'll be considered a potential defendant." Rebecca looked down at Hope's tiny face, then back at Marcus. "What cooperation do they want? Testimony about the offshore accounts, the money laundering, the business operations you witnessed," Agent Rodriguez explained. "We also need access to Marcus's home office and computer files." "I'll do it," Rebecca said without hesitation. "Rebecca, think about what you're doing," Marcus said desperately. "Think about Hope. Think about our family." "I'm thinking about Hope. I'm thinking about raising her to understand the difference between right and wrong. I'm thinking about making sure she never has to be ashamed of her mother's choices." Marcus's mask finally slipped completely, revealing the rage beneath his careful facade. "You naive little fool. Do you think the government is going to take care of you? Do you think your precious integrity is going to pay for Hope's college education? We'll figure it out. You'll be broke within a year. This house, the cars, the trust funds, everything will be seized. You'll be a single mother with no money and no skills, trying to raise a child whose father is in federal prison." Rebecca felt hope stir against her chest and realized her daughter was responding to the tension in the room. Even at 3 days old, she could sense the conflict surrounding her. "Then that's what I'll be," Rebecca said calmly. "But I won't be a criminal, and Hope won't grow up thinking it's acceptable to steal and lie and betray the people who love you." Agent Rodriguez stepped forward. "Mr. Matthews, you need to come with us now." "Wait," Marcus said, his voice breaking. "Let me say goodbye to my daughter." Rebecca hesitated, then gently passed Hope to Marcus one last time. He held the baby close, whispering something too quiet for anyone else to hear. When he handed her back, Rebecca saw tears in his eyes. "I love you both," he said. "Whatever happens, I need you to know that." "If you loved us, you wouldn't have betrayed us," Rebecca replied. As federal agents led Marcus away in handcuffs, Rebecca felt a strange sense of peace settle over her. For weeks, she had been living in a world of lies and deception, never knowing what was real and what was performance. Now, finally, she knew exactly where she stood. Hope began to fuss, and Rebecca instinctively began the gentle swaying motion that seemed to comfort her daughter. Through the hospital window, she could see news crews setting up for live broadcasts about Marcus's arrest. By tonight, everyone would know that billionaire Marcus Matthews had been taken into federal custody while his wife chose justice over loyalty. "What happens now?" Rebecca asked Hannah. "Now you rebuild your life. The government will seize most of the assets, but there are legal protections for innocent spouses. You'll have enough to start over, especially if you testify successfully." And Sophia. She'll probably get a plea deal if she cooperates. Mental health treatment, probation, community service. The prosecutors aren't interested in destroying a new mother who was manipulated by a master criminal. Rebecca thought about her cousin, alone in the psychiatric ward with her newborn son. Sophia had made terrible choices, but she was still family, still someone Rebecca had loved since childhood. "I want to see her," Rebecca said. "Are you sure that's wise? She's alone, her baby's alone. Whatever she did, she doesn't deserve to go through this completely isolated." An hour later, Rebecca found herself in the psychiatric ward, holding Hope while sitting beside Sophia's bed. Her cousin looked fragile and broken, her newborn son sleeping in her arms. "I'm sorry," Sophia whispered. "I'm so sorry for everything. I know. I never meant for it to go this far. I just wanted him to notice me, to choose me. I thought if I had his baby—" "Sophia, you need to get help, real help, and you need to cooperate with the prosecutors. Will you ever forgive me?" Rebecca looked down at Hope, then at Sophia's son. Two babies, born on the same day to the same father, innocent of their parents' sins. "I'll try," she said honestly. "For them." As Rebecca left the hospital that evening, Hope sleeping peacefully in her car seat, she felt the weight of the decisions she had made. She had chosen truth over comfortable lies, justice over family loyalty, integrity over financial security. Tomorrow, she would testify before a federal grand jury. Next week, she would move out of the mansion that had been purchased with stolen money. Next month, she would start building a new life as a single mother with limited resources but unlimited determination. Her billionaire husband was in federal custody, facing decades in prison. Her family was destroyed, scattered by betrayal and criminal charges. Her comfortable life was over. But Hope was healthy and beautiful and completely loved, and that was enough to build a future on. Rebecca Matthews was no longer the naive wife of a criminal. She was the mother of Hope Matthews, and she was ready to face whatever came next. "My name is Rebecca Matthews, and I'm here to tell the truth about my husband, my family, and myself," she said into the microphones, her 3-week-old daughter sleeping in her arms. The press conference at the federal courthouse was standing room only, with reporters from every major news outlet crowding the small room. Rebecca had never spoken publicly before, had always let Marcus handle any media attention their lives attracted. But today, she was ready to tell her own story. "3 months ago, I discovered that my husband, Marcus Matthews, was having an affair with my cousin," Rebecca continued, her voice steady despite the chaos of cameras flashing and reporters scribbling notes. "What I didn't know then was that the affair was just one part of a much larger criminal enterprise that included money laundering, tax evasion, and the corruption of public officials." Hope stirred in her arms but didn't wake. The baby had been Rebecca's constant companion since leaving the hospital, a reminder of what she was fighting for every time the stress threatened to overwhelm her. "I made the decision to cooperate with federal investigators not out of revenge, but out of a responsibility to my daughter and to the truth. Hope deserves to grow up in a world where crime has consequences, where family loyalty doesn't excuse corruption, and where doing the right thing matters more than protecting comfortable lies." Rebecca's testimony over the past 3 weeks had been devastating to Marcus's defense. She had provided evidence of offshore accounts, suspicious business meetings, and the elaborate lifestyle that couldn't be supported by legitimate income. More importantly, she had testified about Marcus's plan to flee to Costa Rica, his manipulation of Sophia, and his complete lack of remorse for the lives he had destroyed. "The government has informed me that my husband will likely spend the next 20 to 30 years in federal prison," Rebecca said, her voice catching slightly. "My uncle, District Attorney James Grant, has resigned from office and will face his own criminal charges. My cousin, Sophia Grant, has entered a plea agreement and will serve 2 years of probation while receiving mental health treatment." The room was completely silent, except for the soft clicking of cameras. Rebecca had expected hostile questions, skeptical reporters trying to paint her as a vengeful wife destroying her family out of spite. Instead, she saw sympathy in many faces, understanding from women who recognized the impossible position she had been placed in. "I want to address the question I've been asked repeatedly over the past few weeks. Why didn't I stand by my husband? Why didn't I use my family connections to protect him?" Rebecca shifted Hope to her other arm, the baby's weight comforting against her chest. "The answer is simple. I refuse to teach my daughter that love means accepting abuse, that loyalty means enabling crime, or that family means protecting people who harm others." Rebecca's phone had been buzzing constantly for weeks with interview requests, book offers, and movie deals. Everyone wanted to hear from the billionaire's wife who chose justice over money, the woman who brought down her own family to protect her child, but Rebecca had turned them all down. This press conference was her only public statement, and after today, she planned to disappear from public attention entirely. "I also want to address the financial questions surrounding my future," Rebecca continued. The government has seized most of the assets purchased with criminal proceeds, including our home, cars, and investments. I'm currently living in a modest apartment with my daughter, supported by the small amount of legitimate assets that weren't subject to forfeiture. We will be fine. We don't need millions of dollars to be happy or successful. That was mostly true. Rebecca's new apartment in Santa Monica was tiny compared to the Beverly Hills mansion, but it was clean and safe and felt more like home than the gaudy estate ever had. She had enough money to support herself and Hope for about 2 years if she lived carefully. And after that, she would figure something out. Hannah had offered her a job at her law firm, and Dr. Wells had suggested she consider studying to become a victim advocate. Finally, I want to say something to other women who might be in similar situations, Rebecca said, looking directly into the main camera. If you discover that your spouse is living a double life, if you learn that your family is involved in criminal activities, if you're being asked to choose between loyalty and truth, choose truth. It will be painful and difficult and expensive, but you'll be able to look at yourself in the mirror every morning. More importantly, you'll be able to look at your children and know that you taught them the right lessons about integrity and courage. The questions started immediately as Rebecca stepped away from the microphones, but she didn't stop to answer them. She had said everything she needed to say. Now she wanted to take Hope home, feed her, and enjoy the quiet anonymity of their new life. Outside the courthouse, Hannah was waiting with the car. "How do you feel?" she asked as they drove away from the media circus. "Tired, relieved, ready to be done with all of this." "Any regrets?" Rebecca thought about the question seriously. She had given up wealth, social status, family relationships, and the comfortable life she had built over 7 years of marriage. Hope would grow up without her father, without the financial advantages that could have opened doors for her, without the extended family that had once seemed so important. "No," she said finally. "No regrets." 6 months later, Rebecca sat in the small garden behind her apartment building, watching Hope reach for the flowers blooming in the planters. Her daughter was crawling now, curious about everything around her, completely unaware of the dramatic circumstances of her birth. Marcus had been sentenced to 25 years in federal prison after pleading guilty to multiple counts of money laundering, tax evasion, and fraud. He would be eligible for parole in 15 years, when Hope would be old enough to decide for herself whether she wanted a relationship with her father. Uncle James had received a lighter sentence, 10 years in exchange for his cooperation in exposing other corrupt officials. Catherine had filed for divorce and moved back east to live with her sister. The Grant family had essentially disintegrated, scattered by scandal and criminal convictions. Sophia had completed her probation and was living quietly in Oregon with her son, working as a waitress and attending therapy twice a week. She sent Rebecca photos occasionally, updates on the little boy who was Hope's half-brother. Rebecca had decided she would tell Hope about him someday, when she was old enough to understand the complicated circumstances of her family. "Mrs. Matthews." A voice behind her made Rebecca turn around. It was Mrs. Chen, her elderly neighbor who often helped watch Hope when Rebecca had appointments. "Please, call me Rebecca." "Rebecca, then, there's a man at your door. Says he's a reporter from the Washington Post." "Should I tell him you're not home?" Rebecca sighed. Even 6 months later, journalists occasionally tracked her down, hoping for follow-up interviews or exclusive details about her life after the scandal. She had stopped reading the articles about herself months ago, but she knew they painted her as either a heroic whistleblower or a vindictive wife, depending on the publication's politics. "Tell him I'm not interested. Thank you." As Mrs. Chen went back inside, Rebecca picked up Hope and held her close. Her daughter was wearing a little yellow sundress that Rebecca had bought at Target, a far cry from the designer baby clothes that filled the nursery in their old house. But Hope was healthy and happy and completely loved, which was all that really mattered. Rebecca's phone buzzed with a text message. Dr. Wells asking if she was free for coffee next week. Over the past few months, Patricia had become more than just Hope's pediatrician. She was a friend, someone who understood the challenges of single motherhood and didn't judge Rebecca for the choices she had made. Another message came through immediately after. Hannah sharing a photo from her own daughter's soccer game. Normal, everyday life continuing around Rebecca's extraordinary circumstances. As the sun set over Santa Monica, Rebecca carried Hope inside their small apartment. It wasn't much, 2 bedrooms. one bathroom, a kitchen the size of the closet in her old house. But it was theirs, paid for with clean money, free from the taint of criminal enterprise. Hope's bedtime routine was simple: bath, bottle, story, sleep. No night nurses or elaborate nursery filled with expensive toys, just a mother and daughter, building their life together one day at a time. As Rebecca tucked Hope into her crib, she noticed an envelope that had been slipped under her door. Her heart sank, expecting another interview request or legal document, but when she opened it, she found something entirely different: a letter from Marcus, postmarked from federal prison. Rebecca stared at the envelope for a long time before opening it. She hadn't heard from him since his sentencing, hadn't wanted to hear from him, but curiosity won out over caution. "Dear Rebecca," the letter began, "I know you probably don't want to hear from me, and I understand why. I've had 6 months to think about what I did to you, to Hope, to our family, and I finally understand how much I destroyed." Rebecca almost stopped reading there, but something made her continue. "I'm not writing to ask for forgiveness or to make excuses. I'm writing to tell you that I'm proud of you for making the choices you made. It took courage to stand up to me, to your family, to everyone who told you to stay quiet and protect the people you loved. You protected the one person who needed it most, our daughter." The letter went on for 2 pages, detailing Marcus's life in federal prison, his remorse for his crimes, and his hope that someday Hope might want to know her father. But the part that stayed with Rebecca was his acknowledgement of her strength, his recognition that she had made the right choice even when it was the hardest choice. She folded the letter carefully and put it in the small box where she kept important documents. Someday, when Hope was older, she might want to read it. But for now, it was enough to know that Marcus finally understood what Rebecca had known all along. Some things were more important than money, comfort, or family loyalty. Truth was more important. Justice was more important. Hope's future was more important. As Rebecca prepared for bed in her small apartment, she felt something she hadn't experienced in over a year: peace. Not happiness exactly, the grief and trauma were still too fresh for that, but peace. The calm that came from knowing she had made the right choices, even when those choices cost her everything. Hope was safe. Hope was loved. Hope would grow up knowing the difference between right and wrong, because her mother had shown her through actions, not just words. Rebecca Matthews was no longer the billionaire's wife. She was no longer part of one of Los Angeles's most prominent families. She was no longer wealthy or socially connected or protected by money and influence. She was Hope's mother, and that was enough. Outside her bedroom window, the lights of Santa Monica twinkled like stars, each one representing someone else's life, someone else's struggles and triumphs and daily decisions between right and wrong. Tomorrow, Rebecca would wake up and continue building her new life, one honest day at a time. Her billionaire husband had thought he could escape the consequences of his crimes. Her family had thought loyalty was more important than justice. The world had thought money could buy anything, including silence and complicity. They had all been wrong. And Rebecca Matthews, single mother and truth teller, was finally completely free. If this story of courage and betrayal captivated you, show your support by hitting that like button and sharing your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever faced a situation where doing the right thing meant sacrificing everything? I'd love to hear your perspective. Don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you never miss these powerful true stories that remind us what real strength looks like. Your engagement helps these important stories reach others who need to hear them.